Okay, how to podcast peeps. I have the world famous. Okay, world famous because my guest co-host today is launching her podcast, recording like crazy, and she's going to take over the podcasting world. And I'm so excited to have Whitney here with me today to talk about her new podcast and to share the spotlight as the guest co-host extraordinaire. Whitney, welcome to How to Podcast series. This is kind of surreal. Hi.
Hi. I love speaking this into existence. The world famous. Yes.
See, it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. I call out the obvious is what I think. So yeah, Whitney has been listening to the podcast, which makes me so happy. And we've been sharing emails, going back and forth. And whenever Whitney emails me, I stop everything, comes to a grinding halt, and I answer that email. Because Whitney only emails when there's something to ask. And so, yeah, when your emails pop up in my inbox, Whitney, I just have to stop. I love it. I love it. So thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I've told you this, but the way that I started talking to Dave is through, you know how, and if you're a regular listener, then you know that every episode he invites you to like engage with him and to let him help you if you need help or to get his feedback or advice. And so I reached out randomly because I am launching a podcast, and it was several months ago. So I was much earlier on in my journey, and I reached out and you responded, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is what we're going to do. And then I went to a Zoom room and we chatted on the Zoom room, and you've been a huge help. So I'm grateful to be here. I feel like I've been procrastinating this because somehow I'm shy, but yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So are you going to listen to your own episode now on the How to Podcast series? That's kind of surreal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I'm going to shout myself out. Hey, Whitney, I see you.
You're going to be laughing at yourself. I love it. I love it. Thank you, by the way, for listening and for all your feedback and support. It means a lot to me. You know, as you're recording your new podcast, you record into a microphone, you look at your notes, and there's no one else here. And sometimes, and you're just like putting it out in the world going, I hope this helps somebody, right? That's the goal. If somebody is encouraged to do their podcast or to take that step, that's all I really was hoping for. And when those messages come back to you from a listener, it really, you'll see as your emails start coming in, it feels like there's a few weeks or maybe a few months where it's kind of quiet, and then all of a sudden, here they come, right? These little messages and notes, and it means everything. So thank you for reaching out. It really means a lot to me.
Yeah, well, and I've already got that type of feedback in response to just my trailer, which is a very rudimentary trailer. So I sent Dave my trailer, and he gave me great feedback, and I've sent him an episode that he's put through some audio leveler, I don't know, to make better, and it sounds great. But at any rate, like today I was just hanging out with a friend who was like, hey, Whitney, I really want to support your podcast. I'm realizing that I didn't even know what imposter syndrome was until I listened to your trailer. And that blew my mind because it's like a 3-minute trailer, and it's the first thing that I ever recorded. I feel matter of fact, I'll probably do a new one. But at any rate, it's out there. And yeah, I've been getting feedback just about how excited folks are for the show and that they're already learning through the trailer and through the various content that I'm putting into the world. So that's been really cool. And like we were joking before about like being world famous, and that's not like what I love about the How to Podcast series and you, Dave, is that it's really just about reaching someone. And that's what my podcast is about. It's about supporting and affirming professionals of color who navigate imposter syndrome and racial toxicity in their workplace. And so it's like, I just want people to feel heard and feel seen, and then get some tools to make their work life better, like period.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a great idea. It's a very niche or niche, however you want to say that. But I love that you've really focused in and you know who you're talking to and you know what you want to say and you have a purpose. Like you have, in our conversations, you've thought out well in advance what you're thinking about. You have a plan. And like I've told you many times, you are so far ahead from some other podcasters just starting out because they can think maybe 1 or 2 episodes into the future and then they don't know after that. They think they're going to run out of stuff to talk about. I don't think you're going to have a problem with that. I think you're well on your way. So it's amazing. So shout out your podcast in process. Tell everybody about it and all that stuff at the beginning and where to find it. Let's start with that.
Okay, yeah. So it is Impostrix Podcast. Ostrix.
Perfect.
And as I said, the podcast is all about affirming professionals of color who navigate imposter syndrome and racial toxicity in the workplace. The reason behind the name is really just because I wanted to talk about things that are difficult and that make us feel less than powerful. And so I wanted the name to be something that might bring power, like when you say it, make people feel power. And I thought about it, a dominatrix, actually. Yeah. And I combined the words imposter and dominatrix to impostrix. And then I learned that impostrix is actually the female conjugate of imposter. So it works out. But that's what it is. I know it's not very SEO searchable, but it is what it is. And that's the name right now. And I'm going to launch July 25th with 3 episodes that day. But the episodes are going to be 30 to 40 minutes, and it's a conversational show. Every other episode, there will be a guest, and we'll talk about all things. And then on the alternating episodes, I will be answering questions about the topics, questions that folks have. I'll be talking about my experiences, and it's been really fun. Getting into this process, I've learned so much, but even in just speaking to my various guests, my world, my view, my vision, my perspective is just so much larger than it was coming into this. And that's been really amazing.
Cool. I love it. The one thing you wanted to talk about today on How to Podcast series is bloopers and some of the fun things that go on behind the scenes that maybe some people will never know about, because we'll bury it and edit it as much as we can. I have several that I can talk about from my perspective, but I'd love to hear one from you. What's something, and I'm sure there's people listening that are like, oh, I can so relate to any of these. Give us one from your perspective. What have you kind of had to deal with starting out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first one that immediately comes to mind, because I'm still mad about it, is I've been encouraged to do video recording for the podcast. So for like promos and stuff like that. And so I started video recording one day last week because I had gotten my makeup done and I was looking good. And so that was going to be the day. And 2 things happened. The first time that I recorded like a 30 to 40 minute episode, was looking great. Like I was in the zone. And then when I was done recording, I downloaded it to listen to it and there was no sound. And I realized that my microphone was off the whole time. There was no sound anywhere. And I looked great. I was interactive, like I wasn't boring looking, and there was no sound. And I wanted to cry. And matter of fact, I wanted to text you, Dave, and be like, I hate this. and then immediately after that, once I turned on my mic, I went to record 3 additional 20-minute solo episodes and was using my phone as a camera that was connected to my computer to use for the webcam, and recorded all of those sessions and then went back to look at the recordings to see that I hadn't actually switched over my video from my phone to my computer. And so not only that, my phone, the camera was situated in front of my computer camera. So the image that you're looking at is literally half my face, half phone. And it's all grainy. So the audio sounds great, but the visual is not, it's only good for a blooper reel. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So those were two things that happened to me last week that made me like want to throw something. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I have. My wife Jen and I do podcasts together once in a while, and we had set up 2 microphones for recording the day before. And so I have one I'm talking into right now. I have the exact same one on another stand. And I had unplugged my normal microphone and I had her microphone plugged in. But her microphone was on the other side of the room because we put it away when we were done with it, not changing it on the computer. So I'm talking into a dead mic. It's not plugged in. I did an entire interview with someone and then listened back to it and it sounded like crap. I'm like, why does it sound so? Oh, the microphone that's like 20 feet away picked up my voice. So it was like you couldn't even hear me.
Right.
And I'm like, so that was fun. I had another one where I interviewed somebody, Whitney, and they sounded great. When I pulled the audio down, there was no track for me. Nothing. No video, no audio, just my guest. So there
Where were you? What happened?
I reached out to the people that were, when I did the recording, they couldn't find my track. They're like, sorry. So I had 0 of me and only my guest. The only track I had was my guest. So it would be like this where I'm talking, but when I'm listening back, all I could hear is you. So I had to then recreate my side of the interview while it was still fresh in my mind. And I did it again. So I put my guests into my software and all the gaps where they weren't talking was when I was talking. So I had to listen to their answer, remember what I asked, and then re-ask the question to make it sound like we're still together.
That's hilarious.
That's fun. Terrible. Don't do that. Don't do that. But yeah, it was nothing that I did wrong. It was just the software took a dirt nap on me, and that wasn't very fun. So, yeah.
Well, and the lesson is for me, like, record a little bit, stop, go back, listen to it, look at it, and then like start recording for real is what I need to do. Like right now in this rookie time, because clearly, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I have lots to learn. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I had been doing that. It's just this particular day. And I guess this is what I also learned is not to do this stuff in a rush.
Right.
Because that particular day, so I have young kids and I had to pick those kids up from daycare by a certain time. But I had my makeup face on. And so I was trying to use this. I think I had like 2.5 hours a day to like get all this done. And so I was just trying to get through it. And so now I am too traumatized to go back and figure out what I'm going to do.
Okay, so a tip for people listening, a new podcaster who haven't hit record yet, and they want to avoid what just happened for you. What kind of things are you putting in place going forward to remind you to have the mic on and all that stuff? You have any things you're going to do now?
Well, now that you've asked me, I feel like I should. So I'm going to say I should probably have like a sticky note somewhere that has like the things. So like turning on the mic and plugging in. Another thing that I sometimes don't do is like the headphones. I might not have them connected to the mic. I might have them connected to the computer. So making sure that the headphones are connected to the right place. I noticed that I need to have a mouse. It's easier for me because I do this on my laptop instead of a desktop.
Yeah.
I don't like having to use the mouse pad.
Yeah.
Another one is having a notebook or like lots of stickies or something to write on, but so that I don't have to turn the page. So I need like large enough. I don't know. How do you do that? Do you just have like a little note thing?
I have a clipboard. Okay. And another tip is a pen that doesn't click. because if you sit there nervously clicking your pen, it's going to go right in the microphone. Click, 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 click. You can't get that out when you're talking. So an unclickable pen. And when I'm listening to my guest, like we're doing now, and something comes up that I want to talk about later, instead of interrupting you, I just write down without looking at my page. I just scribble something that I can just kind of glance down and go, oh yeah, I want to come back to that point. So it looks like a total mess. Like right now, I just have all this blank space at the bottom of my page. But as we're talking, if something comes up that I'm just like, I want to talk to you about that more, or I want to go on a tangent somewhere different from what you just said, I just write down a keyword that you said to remind me to go back to that point. So, and I don't look at my page when I'm writing it. I just know to write something there. So I just quickly glance down and I'm ready to go with the next thing. Because I'll forget it. I'll forget it. Right. So that's what I do.
And I'm over here trying to write a full sentence. Don't do that. Do what Dave does.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just comes by trial and error, really. And the one thing for me, I don't know for you, we're kind of going off a little bit on interviews and stuff. I don't write out my questions for my guest. I did, I guess, when I first started. I had some basic idea of what I wanted to talk about. But for some reason, at this point, I can do my interviews with nothing really written down at all. Like your website name, the name of your podcast, a few things that we talk about in our pre-interview, and that's about it. And the people that I meet with, they're like, great questions. Like, where are you getting these questions from? I'm like, well, it's a blank page. I'm just listening to you, and I really want to know more about you. And the one thing I tell my guests, and sometimes my guests ask for the questions in advance, and I said, all I tell them is, I'm going to be talking about you, and you're an expert on you. There's nothing that I'm going to be asking you that you wouldn't know the answer to, because it's all about you. You know yourself better than anyone. So, yeah, I don't usually give my questions out in advance. So
I noticed that.
What I do. Yeah.
I was like, any day now, like any moment, Dave is going to send me some questions. See? And when they didn't come, I was like, oh, shoot. Okay. Like, here we go. I think he's expecting me to like figure out something that'll be fun to talk about. So let me start thinking about it now so that I'm not showing up with no ideas.
See? Okay. I love it. I love it. Anything else blooper wise? You're like, oh.
Yes. What was it? There was something. So definitely this. Okay. As a new podcaster, we like to say that you can podcast for free. And you can. I can't, because I have a type A personality and I'm a perfectionist. And I need tools that I have to pay for to do that. And luckily, I'm in a position where I can. So I have signed up, though, for all of these free trial periods. And many of these free trial periods are requiring payment information. And like, this is just a life thing. It's not so much a podcast thing, except for that it recently happened to me where I did one of these things where I needed to get a domain name for my podcast. So it's www.impostrixpodcast.com.
Beautiful. Good job. Good job.
Dave told me to do. So I did it. But when I signed up for it, like I don't have much computer programming. Website. I don't have background in any of that stuff. So this particular website that I went to sign up was kind of difficult for me to navigate and figure out, like, when it's asking you, do you want to add on this service? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think I'm just paying for the domain name, but a month later, I have charges in my bank account that's saying I'm being charged $20 a month in addition to the charge for the domain name for these services, and that I have a monthly subscription. So of course, then I go and try and like figure out what these charges are and why. But the moral for me of the story is, and I do this in my in my other life, in my non-podcast life, is like calendaring when I need to unsubscribe by, or when I need to cancel my thing if I can't automatically do it, like when I'm signing up, because sometimes you can. So there have been several moments like that where I'm finding charges because there was a service that I was trying. I decided I didn't like it, but didn't go back to like cancel. So remember to go back and cancel if if you're trying to get, the free service, but then the free service turns into a pro or a premium or a plus, but you don't want that, then yeah.
Good. Yeah, I love that. Another one too is I would say is try to be early to an interview from the host perspective. For me, I've had like 4 times in the last month where my computer decided to do an update like 5 minutes before recording time. And I'm locked out. I can't do anything. And I'm scrambling trying to get my computer to stop doing this right now. I need you, right? That's terrible. And the other one was I was recording with someone and we had a power outage right in the middle of the interview. And I was on Zoom with my guest for that one. And all of a sudden the screen went blank. Everything went black in my house. It was daytime, but I'm in the basement. So everything's pitch black. And I'm like sitting here and thinking, now how am I going to fix this? Because my guest is now talking to a blank screen. So I jumped on my phone, switched my phone to my data plan instead of my Wi-Fi, signed into my Zoom through my phone, went upstairs where it's light more. I could see sunlight. Continue the interview from my phone so that I could continue it. It was only going to be audio anyway. So it sounds different because it's 2 different settings, right? But my guest was like, what happened to you? Like I was talking and then you just disappeared. So anyways, all those tech stuff, you have no way to know it's going to come. You can't plan for it. And you can only listen to other people and go, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good backup plan. I would never have thought of that. So in the moment, there was no one here to ask. I'm by myself. You just figure it out, right? So those kind of bloopers, they're frustrating, but there's nothing you can do about them. Just figure it out. So
yeah. One question that I have for you is about like where you store your stuff. Where do you store the audio files? Because a annoyance that I'm experiencing is that I'm storing it on this Google Drive. Google Drive has very quickly run out of space. I can't save it on my hard drive because my hard drive is going to run out of space. So I've gone over to what's it called? Microsoft OneDrive. Yep. And there they have a family plan with the terabytes and blah, blah, blah. So we did pay for that. But now it's like I'm trying to transfer over all of my stuff and it's taking forever and it's annoying. So what do you do with your stuff?
I went and bought like an external drive for my computer. So I'm on a desktop computer. So it was like 8 or 12 something terabytes. It's ridiculous. Like, and I moved everything. My computer was like as slow as you could think of. Click something and you can go grab a coffee and come back and it's still thinking. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I moved everything over there and I don't keep all my audio final, like my MP3 final files that I have that I upload to my hosting site, because I can always make another copy of them from my software. So to have them seems irrelevant after they've been loaded. And then the video, once the video is done and all complete, everything's finished, I don't keep a copy of the finished video file on my computer either. I upload it to YouTube and I can always go to YouTube and download it. I can't edit it because it's a complete project, but the video is there. So I let YouTube handle my hosting of my backup drive by hosting my video. Technically, I can pull my audio down from YouTube as well, but I just give that to my host, and my host has a download button that I can re-download my complete audio. Again, it's all mixed together. Intro music's in there. Everything's one file, but I have I do all my editing on Audacity, so I can have separate tracks, and those files are smaller than the MP3. So I let my hosting site handle the audio. I let YouTube handle my video, and then I just keep the working copies that I use.
So, and do you host with Buzzsprout?
I have
who do you host with?
3 shows on Buzzsprout and 4 on Spotify for podcasters. Anchor.
Okay. And so you're saying that you just like when you finish an episode and it's published, then you will not keep a duplicate of that on your stuff. You'll just on your drives. You'll
Yeah.
just if you want the episode, you'll go to Buzzsprout or Spotify and download it.
Or I'll pull up the actual editing software and just make a new copy. Just export
Okay.
it as an MP3 again if I need a new copy of it.
And so
But
does Audacity, it stores it like in the cloud or something?
that's on my hard drive, but it's
Okay.
really
Okay.
tiny compared to the finished product.
Right. Mm.
So, and then my Zoom files and my Riverside files, when I download those are my audio files from the interview, like we're going to do today.
Mhm.
Those I put on my external drive as well, so they're not living on my computer because those are big as well. So
Yeah. And
once I use them, I move them off my computer.
it was my intention to get a hard drive, but then a friend shared with me a horror story essentially about like their hard drive breaking essentially.
Mm-hmm. It's happened to me.
And that,
Yeah.
that scared me. And so I just decided to go with OneDrive, but it hasn't, I don't find it very easy. Like I'm not I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still new to the OneDrive, like just even transferring it over and then finding it later and then finding an icon. But that's something that'll just take me a day of like effort and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause after, like for me, I have the 7 shows. I'm over 750 episodes now across all 7 shows. So that's 750 video files, audio files. My computer's like, no, we're not interested in that. So that really took my computer down. So getting them off your drive makes everything faster and less frustrating. You don't have a lot of time, right? By the time you're done this recording, we say goodbye. You go off and enjoy barbecue tomorrow. I'm going to be here editing, right? So I want to get through this and get done. And if clicking something and waiting for my computer to do its thing because it's all full of all my files, no, I won't. Click a button, and it's done, and I'm on my way. So yeah, for me, that's how I went. I did have a hard drive that I lost a lot of stuff on. Thankfully, I had backed it up. All the really important things like photos of my family, I had put that on another drive. So I had 2 sources. So I didn't lose that, but I did lose some stuff that made things inconvenient.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's the chance you take. But you just got to be really careful with it. Set it up, don't touch it, and you're fine. So
yeah. How long have you been podcasting?
I'm into my 3rd year now for my first show. And then my most recent show, I'm about 6 months, 8 months in from my most recent show.
Wow. 750 episodes is like, woo.
This podcast, I just looking at my numbers today, we're at almost 50,000 downloads.
Wow.
Which is for me, to be quite honest, Whitney, when I first started this, I know when I first started this, I was getting like 5 listens, 10 listens. And I was so thrilled that there's a lot of podcasts out there about podcasting. And it's a lot of competition to get in there. But I think I mentioned this to you before. I just noticed when I listen to those other shows, if you don't do it their way, you're doing it wrong. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like people making fun of people because they have a different opinion. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to create a safe place for people to listen to this and be encouraged to start a show. Even if you choose to do it different than I do, start your show. And if there's something here that helps you, great. That's awesome. But I will never make fun of my audience for choosing a different path.
Mm-hmm.
Do what works for you, right? That's like you said, not using free things. I love free things because I have 7 shows and I can't afford 7 times everything. I can't do it. My wife would not be happy with me. So I have to pick some free options to keep going. Right. So, but as the audience grows, I think the biggest joy for me besides a number, because I don't want anybody to think, well, I'll never get to that number, Dave. I honestly thought I would never get to that number. So
Mhm.
when you get to have a chance to talk to a listener, I get to talk to you, Whitney. Like, this is the joy of my day. I couldn't wait to do this today. When you get a chance to talk to somebody who actually listens to your show and get feedback and make your show better, it's, for me, the best joy ever. And if I did this for one person, and if I went to my downloads today and I had one listener who kept coming back every single episode, only one person, I would do this. What's your minimum number, Whitney, where you're going to say my podcast is a success?
Honestly, I've been telling people this, especially this past month, is that like I already feel like it's a success because I've gotten so much out of it. And as I've been doing this, I've realized that as much as the podcast is for others, like it's so much for me. Particularly right now, work has been tumultuous to say the least. And being able to have conversations with people, with my guests about some of the things that I'm dealing with indirectly, it has just been, so empowering, and so even if I didn't launch it, at the end of this month, I would feel like it's been a success. I hope, like, ultimately, I do hope to create a community of folks who can lean on each other. And so, that would be nice. But I think for this first season, that will probably go through like December. I just want to have like 20 people who are like, I don't know, listening to every episode and like engaging with me and talking to me about what they're experiencing and what they've tried and, what works and what information that they felt validated by. 20 people.
Good. There you go.
That would be awesome.
And I don't think it's going to take you very long to get to 20 people. I got to tell you that. So that's amazing. So what happens when you get to 21?
I finished the season.
Drop the mic on the floor and that's it, right? You're done. Yeah. No?
No, I finished the season and then regroup in January. So my plan is to go through probably like Thanksgiving time, and then take a step back, regroup, see, take a bird's eye view of, whatever the metrics are, of who's listening, why, because right now, like, I don't even know who's going to be listening. I had the friend that I was talking about earlier. She's a white woman and she was like, I want to support you, but I don't know that that's the place for me. And I'm like, no, it's for everybody.
Nice.
Like, this is for everybody. Like, yes, I'm certainly centering professionals of color, but I think for us to be able to move forward in community with each other of different races and of different backgrounds and ethnicities, like, we have to be in on each other's experiences. And what better way to do that than to have an opportunity to just sit and listen and not have to respond, not have to say anything, figure out the right thing to say or the right thing to feel or whatever the case may be. And so even, I have non-Black people of color who are on the show, and I've learned so much from them about how their experiences are different than mine. So, the benefit of listening is for everybody, and so at the end of this first season, though, I want to know, like, who is listening, and do I need to adjust to make content that might be more relatable for certain people that I didn't anticipate would be listening,
Yeah.
And then, next year I'll record season 2.
Amazing. What are you learning about yourself as a new podcaster? What kind of skills are you picking up? What are you getting more confident in?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be learning something as you do that.
Oh, so much. So like I came into this not knowing anything about audio, engineering, editing, video. And frankly, I'll be quite honest, had I known how much goes into podcasting, I would never have decided to be a podcaster. Like never, never. but now I'm in it, and so I mentioned I'm a type A personality. And so what I'm learning about myself is like, this is an exercise in like letting go and just doing the thing and being okay with imperfection and being flexible. And so that's been really nice. Technically speaking, I've been learning. I mean, I've been doing all my editing, except for what you've done.
Yeah.
The episode that you ran through your software, I've been doing all my editing. And so that's been something.
I love it. I love it. So that software we're talking about, that's called Levelator. So you know what that's called. And it's free, which I'm a big fan of.
Things.
Yeah,
yes, no, I love free things.
So all you do is you have to take the audio and turn it into a WAV file instead of an MP3, which is just a higher quality version of the recording. And you drop it in there and you just drag it in and drop it. And that's it. It spits it back out to you and basically takes a very loud person and a very quiet person and kind of makes them even. That's it. And there's no settings. You can't turn a dial. You can't make it different. You give it to them. You give them your file. They give it back to you. That's it. And you never have to pay for it. It's been around for forever. And it works so good. I had a gentleman reach out to me. He has a podcast for people serving the military. And he had a guest on. And it was like a 2-part interview. In the first part, his guest mic was completely screwed up. So he was normal volume and his guest was like he was in another room, really, really quiet, like behind a door. And he's like, he was going to have to re-record everything. And he was upset about it. He was in a Facebook group. So I'm like, well, give me it. Let me take a shot. So I gave it back to him and I brought his guest, not perfect, but brought him up just using the software. And he was so thankful. So there's tools out there. You just have to know where they all are and kind of how to use them. But that's what that was, Levelator. So there you go.
Yeah. I've also been learning a lot about like, I don't even want to say graphic design because I am a very novice, very, very rudimentary, but like putting pictures on a page and making it look good. Like I've been learning about that. Dave's also convinced me to make a website using Canva.
How's that been going?
It's rough.
It's rough.
But it's fun. I mean, I guess I just want everything to be easy. And it's not that. Like, that's not podcasters, future podcasters. Like, it's not, there are challenges. It's fun. It's rewarding. I love it. I enjoy it. But it's very difficult for me because I'm not artsy at all. I'm logic brained. Like, I'm a lawyer. I'm logic. And so there's so many options. Oh my gosh. The options are like my nemesis. Can I please have like 3 options instead of 50? But it's coming along. At some point it'll be launched. Right now I'm using a pod page, and eventually like a nice, pretty custom website will appear.
So I just Googled you, which sounds funny every time I say that, but I Googled you and I'm looking at your podcast on Amazon Music right now. Doesn't that feel weird when
it does.
Your podcast is like on Apple and all these other places? You're like, wait a minute, that's me. Like, I'm here with all these other people doing the thing. Doesn't that feel weird?
It does. And even like sometimes, well, not recent. Yeah, actually, I listen to myself on podcasts. I've been guesting on podcasts. I did the trailer. And sometimes my kids are in the car and they're like so confused. They're trying to figure out like, why is mommy's voice? They're like, Mommy, is that you? Like, it is. It is me.
That's amazing.
It does feel, it's bizarre.
I like seeing you on a Google search. Like, again, that's another feeling. It's like, this is amazing that like it's working. And that's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. But so Dave, okay, what about you? What have you learned that maybe is unexpected? Because you have a background in music anyways, like in audio, right?
Yep.
So what have you learned over the past few years?
Well, for me, because, well, I have the 7 shows because I want to grow 7 times faster. That's kind of the idea. If I did 1 show a week, that's 52 shows a year. I would be bored. For me, I want to go. I want to go. So, like I said, I have a lot of episodes. My one podcast is 18 months old. I have 250 episodes. So, like, there's 3 a week going out in my feed, and they're 40-minute episodes. And I'm doing everything in the background on top of it, right? So, I just love all the editing and stuff is easy and fun for me because I do music editing. So that skill set, I was just able to bring it to podcasting. So that didn't have a learning curve, really, which was fun for me. I get to meet great people. So on that one podcast with 250 episodes, my youngest guest is an author podcast. My youngest guest wrote his first book at 5, and he came on the podcast at 10 with his mom, and I interviewed him to talk about his 6 books that he's written since he's 5 years of age. And then my oldest guest was 81, wrote his first book about 2 months ago. Like, I get to talk to amazing people around the world. And some of these people I have no business being in their calendar, to be quite honest, because for you, I couldn't afford your billing rate. There's no way. So, but I get to talk to great people and learn from them and listen to their story and amplify their message. And for me, and I tell everybody this, Whitney, is I feel like my job in podcasting is to create the stage, set up the microphone, get the lights just right, and then just get out of the way and let my guests shine. Because that's why we're here. We want to connect with the guests. We want them to be the star of the show, and we want to share their message. If I have a gentleman come on and talk about the time that he tried committing suicide, and he is now better, and his family surrounds him with love, and he's thankful that he's here to hug his grandchild. And if somebody hears that episode and goes, well, there's hope for me then. That's all I need. That's all I want that message to go out. And if my podcast is that only thing that person hears that could change their life, then I know I'm in the right spot.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing this. And I haven't made a sweet penny on any of this stuff. And that's not why I'm here. I don't have a commercial. I'm not going to cut from our talk and go and try to sell you a mattress. I'm here because I want you on the show, and I want people to connect with you. I want them to come to your podcast, the Impostrix podcast. I want them to come and support you and get you past 20 people in the first episode, because I want you to be rewarded for all your heart and your effort, because that's the most important thing here.
Yeah. Well, and I've appreciated that so much about like you and what you offer and your passion. Like you can feel it. And I'm sure that other listeners can feel it when they're listening to your episodes. And the episodes are fun for me, and maybe more fun now that I know more about your personality. But your little like quip, like I just remember in the hater episode, what is it, 76?
Yeah, 76.
Where you're talking about this dude who's what is it? Not the roof, but
the hood. Yeah.
The hood of the car flies up, shatters his glass, and then he like veers off, and you just keep driving. And I'm just like cracking up at the thought of you. Like, nice Dave. Nice but direct Dave.
Doing, man.
And right.
And
then something I listened to yesterday, I think it was, where you were talking about commercials and how annoying they are. And I'm just like, that dude is awesome.
Well, and then I get this email from Whitney that says, what's up with these thread things? You need to do a Daily Dave. And I'm like, oh, gosh. I'm looking at my wife. She's like, what? I'm like, oh, Whitney just sent me an email. I got to go podcast. She's like, oh. So I come downstairs, like flip all the mics on, the lights on. I'm like, okay, here we go. Going to create an episode for Whitney because I got challenged to do a Daily Dave. So thank you. You made me do an episode, and I did it just for you. So
I appreciated it.
If you listened to it, I would be happy with that. So,
and I did. Yeah. So if folks have questions, like, please reach out to Dave, because you're obviously very responsive. Like, obviously, I'm here.
Yeah. It's great. I love it. Okay, so I don't want to keep you much longer, Whitney. Is there anything for How to Podcast that we can do to help you more in the episodes and the topics and the teachings and all that stuff? Is there anything missing or anything you want more of, anything you want less of? The chance to talk to a listener, when you get the opportunity to do this, you're going to want to ask these questions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that we can do to serve you better as a new podcaster? You're speaking on behalf of the other people listening as well, by the way. Is there anything else that we can do to help you? What can I do to serve you?
Goodness. I don't know, because I'm finding the podcast so helpful, and maybe I'm so new to it too that I don't know enough about what I don't know.
Okay.
But what I like about the podcast is that some of the questions that I might not think to ask, you're answering. So one of your episodes, the not to do's episode, was really helpful for me.
Not to do's, yeah.
I like when you have lists. That's helpful for me because I'm a list learner.
Okay, good. That's good.
And so, and it's easy for me to maybe jot down if I'm, listening on the go or put in my phone. And I don't, you have a newsletter? Do you have a newsletter?
I have an email newsletter, but I don't really send out a lot right now. I want to do more, but I don't want to bug anybody at the same time, right? Because I signed up for newsletters and I'm like, after a while, I'm like, unsubscribe. Because the stuff that comes in, I'm like, I'm not really getting a lot from it, but.
I don't love newsletters, but what I would suggest might be helpful is because often I'm listening to you in the car when I'm driving someplace, which means that if you're giving me a list of like 5 things, I can only retain one of them.
Right.
So usually I will retain the one, and the one is awesome. And then I'll keep it moving. And then if I remember that night, because I typically do my podcasting stuff from like 8:30 to midnight. If I remember that night, then I'll go in my Notion and write down whatever it was that you said. So anyways, long story short, I think what might be helpful is an infographic or a newsletter that just summarizes what the things are. But I mean, you want people to listen. So I know you don't want to give like all the goods, or maybe I don't know, but some way to get the information that, because it's very practical, very like things that I can actually do, which I appreciate. I'm just not able to always retain it because I'm on the go.
I met one podcaster that said his show notes are so good that people don't even listen to his episodes anymore. And I'm like, that you're a blogger, then you're not a podcaster anymore.
Right. Like, don't do that, because I still want to listen. And so I don't know, don't ask me what the balance would be. But that's the one thing where I'm like, sometimes I have to go back and find which episode. And often when I'm listening to your episodes, because I came in relatively, a couple months ago, you've got all these episodes that like I've never heard. So when I'm in my car and on Spotify, I'm just like clicking and waiting for it to play something. I don't know if it's going to be today's episode. I don't know if it's 10 days ago episode. And so then I'm having to, like, if I need to go back and listen to something, I'm having to go back and find it.
Yeah, I'm the type of podcast listener, when I find a show I love, I go back to episode 1. Like I'll listen to the most recent one because that's what's on my app. But then I'm like, ooh. And I might go, there's one podcast I went back. They've been podcasting for like 5 or 6 years. So I went back to episode 1 and they sounded completely different than they do now. Wow. They sounded horrible. Like their microphone, everything was terrible. They sound amazing now because they have 5, 6 years worth of podcasting, right? So we are all getting better, which is a good thing. But there's so much good stuff in there, and you get to hear the evolution of their thought pattern, and they try things and it fails. They try something else and it fails. They learn a lesson. You kind of get a little bit more of their life as you go back to the beginning. So that's one way I like to listen. A lot of other people don't like to go back to episode 1, but I think it gives me context, which I really like. So Yeah, that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I haven't done that. And to be quite honest, I'm not really a podcast listener. Like I listen to your podcast and a couple of others that I'll drop in on. But when I'm doing that, I'm usually scrolling to find a specific topic.
Okay.
Or maybe I want to hear about some specific topic today. So I'll just go in the search bar of the podcast thing and type in that topic and then pick a random one. Okay. So there are some, like, especially now that I'm into podcasting, and I've met lots of people, I've started following and like subscribing to all of their podcasts. So I get them and I listen to them. But, you know, podcasting is a relatively new format for me, to be, you know, yeah. And frankly, I was listening to somebody's podcast when I had the idea of being a podcaster because I was like, this can't be that hard.
I don't remember the answer to this question. How did you find the show originally?
Somebody, I was listening to one podcast that took me to another podcast, and the co-hosts were talking about how there are people who specialize in teaching people how to podcast, and that they were in that community or whatever. And so then I was like, well, I want to know how to podcast since this is so easy. I could do it. Let me just Google how to podcast. And I don't know if it was a Google search or if it was a Spotify, like one of those random topic searches.
Wow.
But through a search, your podcast came up and I was like, okay, let me listen.
It's kind of right in the title, right?
Yeah. Well, and then like I said, I think like that episode, you were talking about your Zoom rooms. And, you know, you had other ways that we could contact you and stuff like that. But I was like, I ain't going to do that. But I listened to a couple more and I was like, okay, well, he keeps talking like he's saying it every episode. So let me just like see, you know.
What kind of faith did you have in that you'd get a response?
Zero, because you also never know, like, at least I don't know when I'm listening to a podcast, how popular this podcast is. Yeah, so that means I don't know how popular like you are. I don't know how busy you are. Yeah. I don't know anything about you. I just know that it came up on my thing. Yeah. And sometimes you'll see like, you know, this podcast has 500 star reviews or whatever. So I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously that person is famous. But like, other than that, like, I don't know how many listeners you have. I don't know how busy you are. I don't know anything about you. And so I just thought, well, I'm listening to this person like in my car. So they must be somebody. So they're probably not going to respond to me. You responded to me.
There you go. So that's a good lesson for you as well, right? As a new host.
Yeah.
Because that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen because people are going to love your topic and you as a person. And those emails, those calls, speak pipes, whatever, they're going to reach out to you and they'll be like, I don't know Whitney. She might be super famous. I don't know, super busy, right? And you're like, no, please talk to me. I would love to hear your voice. So that's coming for you in more ways, right? Which I'm excited to follow that journey and see you grow as well.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say, folks who are listening who are interested, definitely reach out to me because like I said, I want to build community. And this is a topic that we all deal with, whether or not we identify as folks of color. Yeah. We are living in a multiracial world and in a multiracial workplace, and we're just trying to like be happy and get along and like respect each other. And I think, you know, if you have questions that you want to ask, if you want to be on the show, if you have experiences that you want to share, or if you have an expertise that you think would be interesting, let me know. Like one of my favorite recordings thus far is with a neuropsychologist who talks about the impact of the brain she talks about the impact that racial trauma has on your brain.
Really?
and gets into like the amygdala and like all of these things, which is like for me, I don't know nothing about that. So it's very interesting. And it just, the conversations go places that I don't expect. So yeah, I welcome folks to reach out, to engage with me. Dave is my mentor, so I do what he says, and what he says is be responsive to people and send 5 Instagram followers a week a spoken message. So
there you go.
Yeah, I do all the things.
See, I did it. I did that like 2 days ago, and the response I got back was, "Who does that?" That was like why are you saying? They're like, I've never had an audio DM before, and now you're on Threads and blah 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 blah. Right? It's like, who does that? So again, anything you do that's unique will always stand out. So, and if your podcast, I know it's going to stand out because you're unique. So, right there, that's how you stand out as a podcaster. Just be you, and everything else will fall into place. And I know good things are happening for you. So, I'm looking forward to great success stories. Will you come on in the future and give us an update on how things are going?
To. Okay. Yeah, I would love to. I think that would be great because I'll have many more bloopers to share, I'm sure.
Okay, so make sure you have your mic on and your cameras are connected properly and your computer doesn't die and all this great stuff. And just keep podcasting. You're doing a great job. So thank you for all your support. Thank you for your kind words. And I love those emails. So send them anytime, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, everyone go check out the podcast. All the links in the show notes, right? And I'm going to start working on my newsletter. So now you just gave me some homework. So there you go. My wife got some more free time because now I'm busy. So there you go. Win-win. Everyone wins. Thanks, Whitney, for being part of this.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.